All right. We'll start with you, Gilberto.
Hey, Sean. Yesterday you mentioned you want to see some changes or try some changes on the off for the offense. Have you thought about that more and what that could kind of look like for the week?
Not yet. No, we're just kind of closing this game up and just getting started on our initial preparation. So that would be a little bit too early to make any decisions on something like that.
Gotcha, Sean. And with the running game being a struggle, and you've been trying this committee approach, are you getting to the point where you're just hoping somebody emerges as a lead back?
Yeah, I think ultimately, when you have as many 3 and outs, it's hard to get into any sort of rhythm and routine. And so I think we're at our best when you get more plays off. You have the ability to sustain some drives, and you get a handful of different guys involved. I thought Darrell Henderson did have some bright spots when he had the 110-yard run and 23-yard run in back-to-back sequences. But, I think what we're trying to figure out, Gilberto, is just the best options, whether that be players or different things that we can do with all the moving parts. And that's kind of where we're at.
For Darrell, you think, might require more than 12 carries a game to get him in a rhythm and a groove? Maybe stay committed to him a little more.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I thought he did some good things yesterday. You have like 58 snaps and a couple of them were some no plays. And so when you have 8 3 and outs, it's going to be hard to really be able to get any sort of continuity offensively. And so whether it's the run game, throwing the football, scoring points, there's just a lot of things that aren't in alignment with what good football teams and good offenses do. And we're continuing to try to work through to be better.
And one more for me, Sean. What were the reasons to start Chandler Brewer at right guard?
I just felt like he gave us the best, option. I thought he did a nice job, and I was pleased with the way that he played yesterday.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Jordan.
Hey, Sean, along the theme of the interior offensive line, are you going to look into mixing up personnel on that left side this week?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
And then in terms of what Cooper Kupp called some of the get back on track plays and the 3 and outs and those types of things, getting negative on the sticks and all of those things. I know I asked you this a lot, and I know it's always a lot of different things, but what threads can you pull at specifically in order to start making a positive impact early in the down?
As far as, are you talking about just based on the execution of the previous play, or I'm not quite sure
just getting behind the stick, sort of getting behind the sticks early and sort of having to run some of what he referred to as those get back on track plays, which have seemed to sort of limit what your offense is capable of.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the question is easier answered based on, all right, which play are you talking about? Because if you go play action, you go incomplete, that's get back on track when you're 2nd and 10. If you go inefficient run, so it's based on whatever that first play of the sequence is and what resulted in us being get back on track. Sometimes it might be a penalty, but ultimately there's just too many times that we're having to overcome those types of things. And in previous years, like last year when we had get back on track, those weren't as much of an issue because we felt like we had more of our arsenal that could enable you to be able to overcome some of those 2nd and longs or even 3rd and longs just based on the way that we could attack defenses and some of the ways that we were playing. Obviously, your margin for error is much smaller right now relative to some of the different things that we're working through. And that makes it more challenging because then if you go get back on track, if you don't get it there, then you usually are talking about a 3rd and long. So there's multiple layers to what happens on that first play of the sequence, none of which has been, a good enough theme for us to be able to score points and move the football and sustain possession of the football.
When you are dealing with some of the issues you guys have had, whether it's injury related or execution related or any of the things that you've mentioned being issues over the last several weeks, and you guys are going 3 and out, especially on the other side of defensive stops with the frequency that you're doing so, how do you maintain sort of that maybe even like non-football connection in the locker room, especially when in the initial reaction, players are frustrated?
Hey, tell them the truth. I believe everybody wants to do right. The one thing, Jordan, is this is not for lack of, competing as hard as these guys can. And football is such a complex game because it is a team sport, but there's 3 different phases that are all on the field at different times. And so we always talk about staying connected, but I think you have to be honest and acknowledge the things that led to where we're at. If one side of the ball is playing better than the other or giving you a better chance to be able to win, I think you have to be truthful about that. And there's been different times, whether it's, teams here or teams I've been a part of, where, that's part of it. And we got to be able to continue to figure out how to play the best that we can for this team, and figuring that out to try to win games is a little bit different, just based on all those things that you're talking about. But ultimately, the best way is the connection and the communication and the clear, open, and honest communication that exists relative to some of the struggles that are going on one side of the ball or the other.
Do you feel like you have that type of communication right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Gary?
Any injuries coming out of last night?
You know what? Reggie and I have kind of had a bunch of different stuff going on. I think he was just knocking at my door when after we had started this. So I have not had a chance to get with him yet on that stuff, Gary.
Okay. Cam Akers came back and played last night. What was kind of your assessment of how he did and what might be in store for him going forward?
Yeah, I thought he did a good job with what he could control. The snaps were minimal. There wasn't a whole lot of space. I thought he had a good, tough, short yardage run that converted. I thought he had a good blitz pickup on a quick out route that we hit to Cooper on our near sidelines when Devin White ended up blitzing internally. And I thought he did a nice job. It was good to be able to get him back in the mix. And, all of these things that the hard thing is that, while you want to be able to get guys involved, whether it's, a running back getting more touches, whether that be Cam or Daryl or whoever it might be, or get more receivers involved, for you to be able to do that at the level that we're accustomed to and what you guys have seen, there needs to be production offensively and more opportunities to snap the football and have more touches to go around. And so that's where some of those challenges have been. All these things are just excuses from my end, but I thought with what Cam could do and what he could control based on his snaps, I was pleased with Cam.
And then in talking with Jalen last night after the game, he echoed your comment about the defense, shouldn't have been out there at the end for that last series. But he also said there have been times where the defense has done a good job, come off the field and been told, you guys need to be ready. You're going to be back out there. And that the offense needs some, what he called dogs, to be able to close out games. And wondering if you're aware of those comments and how you react to them.
Oh yeah, of course. I talked to Jalen and I am aware of those things. I talked with him this morning. Jalen's a great competitor. He would say the same thing on the defensive side of the ball if the roles were reversed. So he's always going to be honest. He wants to win. He's passionate about this. He is supportive of his teammates, but he wants them to want to do well and wants them to expect to do well and have that confidence that's exuded. And that's no different than when you hear him talk to his fellow teammates on the defensive side of the ball. If there's got to be an opportunity to be able to rise up and make a play, or if there hasn't been that delivered in certain instances over the last few years. So Jalen is consistent. That's consistent with his demeanor. And I know where he's coming from in terms of wanting to win, wanting to compete, and wanting his teammates to expect to do well and have the confidence to close out those games. And so I think his teammates know that, his coaches know that. So I know where he's coming from, and it's all with the right intentions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah?
Sean, the Rams are 2 games under 500 for the first time since you got there.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
From an on-field results and in the performance, would you say this is the most adversity that you guys have faced since you've been here?
Yeah, there's no question. There's been a bunch of different adverse moments, different things that you go through, whether it's losing a Super Bowl in a very humbling fashion or having the 3-game skid that we had before. We had a 3-game skid in 2019 after we started 3-0. So this is another example of adversity. But that's one of the things that's great about sports is, part of life is handling adversity and dealing with the different circumstances and situations. And what I'm interested in is, let's continue to figure out, how do we improve? How do we address these things? How do we stay connected in spite of some of these adverse moments and different things that we're working through? And for that, that's where we're at. But, you got to be able to move forward. It's a tough pill to swallow the way that we lost yesterday. Like I mentioned to you guys, the only thing that does feel better is when you close the book on the Bucs game and then you shift your focus towards trying to have a good week of preparation and ultimately trying to lead to a good performance that's in alignment with playing the kind of football that we want to be able to play. But there's been no doubt some good adversity that we face, some different things relative to injuries and all those kinds of things. But that's a part of it. And this is what you sign up for.
What have you learned about yourself as you've gone through that this season?
Well, I think you continue to try to learn and apply the appropriate perspective to the things and make sure that, you're leading, you're trying to be as consistent while also not, I don't want to say tolerating. I don't know what the appropriate word would be, but you're not accepting of the current situation that we're in, but you have to be honest about that. So I think what you're continuing to learn is how you want to handle it. And when you look back on that, being proud of, the example, the consistency, but also the urgency that was displayed and trying to fight your way out of this. And that's what we're doing collectively as players and coaches. Nobody likes being in this situation. But the only way that I know how to get out of it is to continue to fight, continue to go back to work, and try to find those solutions that you guys have heard me talk about.
Troy Hill was saying when I asked him about the adversity, he said that you've kind of made it a point to make sure the whole team is staying connected. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it's a team game, and and just based on some of the questions that I got earlier, Sarah, when you can really look at it and you can say clearly offense isn't performing up to the standards, the expectations that we have and that we want to be able to have to play winning football, where, defense did, a lot of really good things yesterday. And so that's where a lot of those divides can somewhat occur. And you want to be cognizant of that. You want to be honest, and you want to make sure that guys understand how vital this is for us to continue to, try to get out of this little rut and try to trend in the right direction as this season progresses with the 9 games that we're guaranteed left.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Tim?
Coach, going back to the first question that Gilberto asked about the changes, when you watch the film of your offense, do you see that you guys are close at all to what you want to do, or is it a complete overall type of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's glimpses. The challenging thing is that it's not exclusively from one. We've obviously had a lot of injuries centralized to certain spots, but I do see positive glimpses. It's just about the consistency and the sustainability through 4 quarters. And similar to what Jordan was asking, some of that early down efficiency is key and critical to try to avoid some of those longer second downs or third downs, Tim. So I do think that there's some positive things. I thought there were some positive performances and encouraging things that we can move forward with, but there's enough stuff that isn't going the way that we want that you can't just say that, hey, we're just this one thing away from being able to get it fixed. And that's where, we're working through that right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis? You're on mute, Dennis.
Hello, Coach McVay.
Hey.
What's your confidence level in the team in being able to turn everything around right now?
Oh, I'm confident, because I'm confident in the people and our players and our coaches to be able to try to right the ship. And I do think that when we play at our best, that can be a pretty good movie for us. But that's something that we've got to be able to do. I say it all the time, Dennis. I see better than I hear, and I want to see, us have a good ability to be able to try to put together a really good plan for these guys, provide that clarity, and then the execution come to life based on the week of preparation and then what unfolds on Sunday. But no, I'm confident.
Okay, and the follow-up question is on Sunday, regarding Sunday, what are you looking for from your team Sunday?
Complementary football, sustaining drive, scoring points offensively, keeping them at, from scoring points defensively. Pretty straightforward stuff. But I think just playing good, clean football, making sure that our fundamentals, our techniques, our communication is in alignment, and then ultimately the execution. And then I want to see guys be able to make some plays when those opportunities present themselves, whether that be offense, defense, or on special teams.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Stu?
Sean, you always talk about looking forward to seeing how a team responds in situations like this. And I know you've also been asked about, the connectedness as well. What do you specifically want that to look like, or what does it look like when it's, displaying the way you want it to?
Yeah, I don't know that I could say what it looks like when it's not going the way that we want, but it's all about the people, Stu. Staying connected, having consistency in your rhythm and routine, a level of urgency in your approach, but a level of support for your teammates to try to help build and establish that confidence that is earned throughout the week and then ultimately when you play. But it's something that you can feel as much as anything that you can see, but it's more about making the necessary adjustments, but having a consistency with the way that they approach their job with the right, hard work and enthusiasm that does lead to your best performances. And that's what I want to see. And that's what I've seen. And that's what I expect to continue to see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg.
Hey, Sean. A lot of people like to use the phrase Super Bowl hangover to describe the troubles that teams go through the year after they win it all. This league hasn't had a repeat champ in about 20 years. That idea, there's an emotional high and then a natural lower level when you come down from that. But for the Rams, is that a real thing? Are there any big picture elements of what you're going through right now that you can actually see as being related to, the length and success of last season? Or is it more technique, more process, more injuries, more the day-to-day football stuff that's causing you problems right now?
I think it's probably more the latter, Greg. But what I would say is that, what you're not naive to is when you do well, the amount of time and preparation that teams do an excellent job of being able to make things that maybe were simpler the previous year more difficult because they're more familiar based on the studies and the offseason things that they've done. But I can just speak on the experiences that I've had here, Greg. This is kind of unprecedented in terms of the amount of different guys that we've played with that we don't really have a comfort and a feel for. I don't want to say a comfort and a feel, but basically a nuanced understanding and experience kind of accumulated over the course of time with them. And so I think it's more the latter, but there's a lot of challenges when you finish up that late. You had the amount of injuries and corrective surgeries that we did have with guys that some of them are still working back to it. And some of them are still having some issues that they're not quite themselves from some of the, the toll that 21 games ends up taking on you from the previous season, which is an excuse. And, we're right here right now and we've got to be able to do better. But I do think it's probably more the latter if I had to answer the original question.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we wrap up with you, Jim.
Yeah, Sean, one question. Is this still a winnable division?
Well, I would say that for us, we have to play better football. There's some teams that are doing some really nice things as you look at it. I'm interested in us really being able to try to play winning football, get back on the win column with all those things that we've talked about. And I've never been one to truly get too far ahead of myself, Jim. I know we've got 9 games left and my focus and concentration is on the Cardinals. I would never say that there's not an opportunity for us to do that, but we've got to start handling our business the right way for that to be a conversation that, that has merit to it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.